good. I think we're about ready, Kelly. I say the format is we'll read out a question. We'll then take some members' opinions on it. Where the person who's asked the question is with us, we'll see if we've got time to ask them for a comment as well, and we'll try and zoom through questions. So you go ahead, Kelly, if we start with question number 1.
So first up, we've got a question from Sandy, and Sandy would like to know if anyone knows how to explain to someone how you are feeling when you have your brain spinning. She says that no one understands when she tells them that she's sick. So what have we got on the floor that can help? Oh, Jean?
Go ahead, Jean. Calling Jean. No, I don't think Jean can hear us, Kelly.
Ah, sad times, Jean. Well, if you think of anything. Who else has got a help out with this question from Sandy?
Well, if I can say from my own experience, many years, for 18 years now, the usual response I get, and still to this day from a lot of friends, is they completely underestimate how bad spinning is. Because their only experience is being on a playground merry-go-round or drinking a little bit too much alcohol and the room spins a little bit one evening, and they tend to just, I don't think they mean it maliciously, but they tend to see it as a very almost fun, light thing that shouldn't really cause you any problems. So I think what I tend to do now, because I have to say after 18 years, I just don't care. I just tell people how it is. And I tend to say it's something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, because it used to make me violently ill for 2 hours until my body couldn't stop vomiting. I just wanted to pass out. It was much better to be asleep or unconscious than to be having these attacks. So I tend not, I stress when I was saying this, I don't do it in a way of poor me, let's get the violins out. It's sort of more factual and saying, this is what it's like. You really don't want this. And even when you're not having a brutal attack, it's no fun when you're not sure if you can walk in a straight line. And it's certainly no fun when there's no warning and you'd planned a whole week of work and that just goes out the window. So it's it's difficult, but for me, it's try not to over dramatize it, not say poor me, but it's be factual and say, this really does get in the way of my life. And imagine if you couldn't stand up or walk, how it could affect everything you do. So hopefully that helps a bit. Has anyone else got similar? I think Anastasia, if you unmute.
Yes. Hello everyone. It's my first meeting.
Welcome.
I'm not entirely sure which condition Sandy was referring to, but I have triple PD and vestibular migraine, and it's fairly recent. I've been diagnosed about a year ago. Still sort of trying to figure out, how to live with this, and trying to explain to my friends and family who still can't get used to me being sick what it's like. And I think the best thing I came up with is just to sort of explain them how it feels, is that my problem is that I can't really look at screens. Sometimes on bad days, I can't even be around people because them gesticulating sets my symptoms off. And I have 3-month-old baby who is moving all the time, and that also sets me off. And sometimes I can't walk. So basically, the way I describe it is that imagine if you're blind and you're missing a leg and you don't have a crutch, because you can't really read, you can't see anything, you can't be around people, and you can't even go to the toilet, properly, across the corridor because, you're missing a leg and you don't have a crutch because you sort of try to sort of stumble alongside the wall. So that's how I feel. I don't know if it's helpful, but I thought I'd share.
No, absolutely, Anastasia. It sounds very helpful.
Yeah.
I don't have any room spins. I don't have that kind of I have vestibular neuritis, and I don't have any spinning per se, room spins, floor spins. It's just I've been told my brain has, for lack of using the word spinning, vertigo. But like, I feel so sick that I'm unfunctionable. And I can't explain to people, like when people say, I have a migraine, your head hurts. But I asked my doctor and he said, there is no explanation. Well, what kind of answer is that?
Yeah.
It's like, give me something.
Well, hopefully you'll get some tips over the course of the next couple of hours that might help.
No,
I can
good.
see lots of hands have gone up since we've just started talking. Claire, I'm going to come to you next. I think I saw you went up first.
Hi everybody, good morning,
Hiya.
good afternoon, sorry. I describe it that when I have a vertigo attack, my whole vision spins around and around, and that I have to look at something static and stare at it. But I also explained that the symptoms go on for a lot longer afterwards and that they're just as problematic. I explained that it's as though my brain is buffering, because most people can relate that to a computer where they see the symbol of going round and round. And I explained that in that period, I'm extremely tired. I don't often make sense. If I've overloaded, my speech can get affected. And then at other times when I just have like a little phase of it, I often end up in the loo for hours and hours. And I do explain that it takes days out of my life. But yeah, everybody will have a different way of trying to explain.
Yeah.
But I think it is really important that we try and convey that it's not just a couple of minutes of spinning, especially as for my consultant wrote to my GP that I only have 30 seconds of spin. But actually, that really doesn't explain the enormity of what I live with on a day-to-day basis, because the GPs were like, why can't you work? It's just 30 seconds of spinning and then you're fine. But it's not. It's a lot more than that. It's the added symptoms that go with it.
Yeah.
I hope anything I said helps somebody.
Thank you so much for sharing, Claire.
Thank you.
Norma, you're on mute still, sweetheart.
Is that better? Can you hear
Fabulous
me now?
nail colour, by the way. Anyway, carry on.
Thank you. I've had Melius for over 40 years, and during the early stages where there was a lot of violent attacks, and I use the word realistically, they really were horrendously violent attacks. I didn't need to explain to anybody how ill I was, because it was obvious how ill I was. I was lying on the floor. I couldn't even lift my head off the floor. You know, it was that bad. And so I never had to explain, because people could see how ill I was. And that would go on for hours. I mean, I would go through a cycle of about 2 hours of the awful sort of vomiting and the spinning, and then I would sleep. I'd almost comatose for about 12 hours afterwards. But like Kevin, I'm sort of in the latter stages of burnout now. I mean, it's taken 40 years, but getting there. And it's different. It's different sort of explanation you have to give, because you don't have such obvious symptoms that I had initially in the first stages. It's generally a feeling of most days feeling not quite steady, out of balance, vision. Some days my vision's better than others. And so yes, it is quite difficult to explain, but I think because I've had this condition for so long, my friends know, and they're just pleased that although I'm not feeling well on a daily basis, I haven't got the horrible illness that I had before with the violent attacks. Yeah. So that's probably the only way I can describe it. Just basically that I just say I'm having an off day, and they seem to accept it because they know how bad the really bad days can be.
Yeah, no, it's very difficult to explain the thing called brain fog, which I think most of us suffer from. Which my understanding of why I get brain fog is my brain is having to manually work so hard, try and get me balanced, whereas normally it's it should happen automatically and
Yeah.
unconsciously. But trying to explain brain fog to people is just really, really difficult. So
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I'm of an age now where a lot of my girlfriends suffer from brain fog. So they seem to sort of think, well, yeah, okay, she's got brain fog, I've got brain fog, but they don't realise you've got the balance issues that go with the brain fog.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Kelly, I don't know if you want to go into the next question. It's kind of related from Faye.
Yeah, absolutely. So this the question that Faye's put to us today is how to deal with justifying your symptoms to friends who just don't get it and suggest it's easy to overcome, and how not to lose your patience. Friends say how lucky you are to be at home and do what you want with all that free time, and she says that she doesn't have that luxury over it and finds those comments quite soul destroying. I think I can definitely relate to that, Faye, so you're definitely not on your own. Helen, I noticed you had your hand up for the previous question. Have you got anything that would help with this one as well?
Yes, I think don't feel the need to explain yourself, because I think ultimately, unless you're going through this, you're not going to understand. And I get it. It can really smart. I've finished work, and I have comments from people along the lines of, oh, but you're out walking, that you could go to work. Well, being in a green space is one of the only places where I feel normal these days, and I'm so grateful that I have that, because I appreciate that not everybody will have that. But yes, just this constant sense of people being able to question, what you're doing with your time is, I find it quite rude. I find it intrusive, and I think we have to get brave and kind of almost fire that back. And I think I'm very careful who I choose to spend my time with these days. And I just don't spend my time around those people that question me, and that can make life a little bit lonely at times. But I think have a tight little circle. Be around people that they might not understand you, but be around the people that will support you.
Brilliant. That's really helpful, Helen. Thank you so much for that contribution. Has anybody got anything else they would like to suggest for Faye's question?
Right, Kelly, if I just add there that part of it is, I know I was there in the early days of my condition, where you don't want to trouble people with it, and you don't want to sound like you're complaining or being a victim, whatever. But another way to think of this, if you don't go to the trouble of explaining as well as you possibly can to family and friends, they're never going to know, because they're not mind readers, and if they've not been through a balance condition, they won't have a clue. So another way of looking at this is probably it's upon all of us, and obviously I mean with close family, close friends, to make an effort to find a way to explain. So a classic one with friends is, if you've sensed that I'm not going to so many parties these days, that's true. It's not because I don't want to be with you, it's because I can't be at parties. But if we don't go to the trouble of explaining that, people might read it another way, going, oh, I don't know why, but this person just doesn't want to socialize with us. So we've kind of got a burden on ourselves to try and explain. But I don't think we should walk around explaining to everyone every day, because that's going to be pretty tiring. And as Helen said, I think if you discover you've got fair weather friends who only want to know you when you're at the top of your health and going there, they're probably not really great friends.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a lot of common sense, but it's, don't forget, they won't have a clue if you don't try and help them understand, as hard as that may be. Go to that effort, because your work colleagues, Andy, I see you're with us today. I visited Andy where he worked, and Andy's employer had a brilliant scheme where Andy's condition was publicised to all his colleagues with Andy's permission, and they knew the symptoms he could display in advance. And what a great way to communicate that this condition exists, but don't worry, it's not life-threatening, but here's what may happen. So I think there's something for us all to learn from that. It is frustrating. If I got paid £5 for every time somebody said to me, "You look well," and it's only a bit of dizzy, I'd be a multi-millionaire. But you know, that's how it is. Let's deal with it. And hopefully today flushing that out just gives you all a bit more confidence to speak and try your best to explain. So if we don't, they won't know.
Norma, did you want to say something? You're on mute again. That's it.
At least I'm doing what I'm told.
Exactly.
One of the things that I forgot to mention earlier, I'll try and keep it brief, is somebody sent a link once to me. With many, as you get tinnitus, and it's hard to explain, like with balancing problems, the tinnitus problems, what it's like living with it. And somebody found something on YouTube which had different sounds of tinnitus recorded, what you're likely to experience, and suggested I played it to my family and friends to let them hear what tinnitus sounded like. And I played it to one or two of them, and they sort of said, "How do you live with that? I can't believe you've got that." I found one of the sounds that was similar to me. And I just wonder whether there might be something like that to show as a rough idea what we're seeing when we've got balance problems, sort of the room spinning, the wallpaper patterns going up and down and so on, to actually be able to say, well, this is similar to what I see, what I feel, what I experience when I'm having an attack or I'm feeling dizzy or unbalanced. And I just wonder if there might be something available similar to the tinnitus.
Yeah, it's
thing.
definitely something to consider. Catherine, you put your hand up, but do you know of any resources?
Yeah, hi everybody, it's good to be here. I've done a very good job actually of explaining what visual noise and visual overstimulation is, and some of those front-loading washing machines, and you know, when you're pregnant and you have morning sickness, and you know, I've really described to people what my symptoms can be like and how I don't want to talk on the phone and can't watch TV and different things. And when they really hear the experience, they do say, "Oh my God, you know, how do you live with that?" I don't have a choice, you know, I have to, and I have to do the best I can. And I've told people about this group. And also, you know, on the website and looking at people's stories, and, you know, sometimes there are examples there. And I think to raise the awareness of what balance disorders are, because people truly don't know, especially here in New Jersey. And so it's helpful, but it happened to me at a very bad time. My daughter had gotten engaged and she was going to have her rehearsal dinner on a boat. And there's no way I could go on the boat. And nobody understood because it wasn't on the ocean. It was a small boat. And my neuro-otologist said, "No boat," you know? So I had to explain different things. And you know, it's not convenient for people sometimes. I find people can be very self-centered and want their way. And, you know, I just have to accept the way that it is. And it is hard, but we have each other to talk to also. I also have a very small, tight little support group and, you know, spiritual outlets that help me as well, including meditation. And you know, I've come a long way in a short amount of time. And this group was pivotal for me because there isn't anything here like this. So I'm very grateful to have found you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Quick note on that. This was an idea pre-COVID that we are still trying to work on. We're trying to pull together, it's, want of a better word, a roadshow that would visit large companies with large numbers of employers, basically using VR goggles to induce the feeling of loss of balance. But the trick is, you can imagine, it has to be done in a very safe environment. So we can't have people falling over or physically being sick. But there are plans afoot I'm working on with 1 or 2 experts behind the scenes to try and pull this together. It was the only way I could think where we could possibly raise money. I work with people like Vida to raise money for the charity, by going to people that don't have dizzy conditions and basically giving them that awful experience for 5 minutes. It should build up a lot of empathy then for balance conditions and hidden disabilities. Why go to large employers? Because they can afford to pay for the experience for those people. We suspect if we get it built, if it's invented, if it's created properly, you guys will want all your partners, friends and family to use it as well, because it will just explain without any words what it's like for just 5 minutes. But I'll let you know how that develops. But there are plans afoot to deliver that. It's the only way I think people will get it. I really do. But sorry, Kelly, we best move on. We'll never get through all these questions.
All interesting chat. I think what will happen is we'll naturally cover lots of the questions anyway.
Yeah.
So the next question that we've got it's from, I think Anastasia, you'll find this particularly useful from what you said earlier. But the person that submitted it has said that they struggle to use a computer screen at home. And do any members have advice on what to do to reduce their own tiredness and the horrible sensations they have when using a computer? So how does other people find computers? I know I find it difficult.
Jane, go ahead, Jane.
Hi, sorry about that. I'm not great on IT. So this is my first meeting as well. So hello everyone, and I'm feeling very validated at the moment.
Amazing.
So one of the things that I wanted to mention before was I actually have vestibular migraine, so the same as Anastasia. And yeah, I've had it for about 4 years, and it's been very acute in the last 12 months. But when you were talking about, you know, sort of trying to explain to people and having that awareness of how you feel, I actually work in the NHS, and I work with children. I work using a sensory integration approach. And one of the things is that we try and regulate children's sensory systems. And if you go onto YouTube, you could probably just put in sensory overload, and that kind of, there's lots of different clips that show you how it might feel. But yeah, obviously not as good as the complete experiential thing that you were talking about before, Kevin. But it's just, I know for me, any kind of demand, that might be work demand, social demand, light demand, movement of the head, anything gives me sensory overload and gives me vestibular migraine. I can stop it by slowing things down, but demand is a very big thing. But yeah, if you have a look on YouTube and just put sensory integration or sensory overloading, you should be able to get some good clicks.
Great, lovely.
Anastasia?
Yes, thank you. So about computers, I'm still trying to find my way through this condition, but a few things that I think might help. So first of all, I'm sorry if it's sort of trivial, but I was recommended to use migraine glasses. So I'm wearing those right now. So you can buy them on Amazon quite cheaply. And the other thing that my consultant recommended is a very good quality large computer monitor. So he's recommended to stay away from laptops because the way the screen flickers sort of makes it harder. So if you connect your laptop to sort of a better quality large monitor screen, computer screen, then it should help. And I think he might be right. I did a bit of part-time working because I was on sick leave and then did phase return to work. And I noticed that the bigger the monitor, the easier it is for me. And similarly, I almost can't use my mobile phone because it's a small screen and I don't know, it flickers more. I don't know how it works. I'm not very techy, but that's just my experience. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anastasia. I think some of the things that I found quite useful, just like quick tips, are obviously taking regular breaks from your screen always helps. I turn my brightness down on my monitor. That helps me. And then I also try and prioritize my tasks. So if I've got to do quite a lot of screen work that involves a lot of concentrating, I do it kind of earlier in the day if I can, when I'm kind of a bit more alert, and then try and kind of prioritize from there, so that, because I get tired as the day goes on, so then by that point I'm just like, it's just too much to keep looking at a screen. So that might be something else that's useful for people. Amy, I've seen your hand go up. We've got
Can you hear me?
John's up as well. Amazing.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I use a blue light filter on my screen that extends how long I can go on it. I have it pretty red actually. And it's a free program. It's called Flux. It's spelled F.LUX. So you can just go on the website and download it, and then you can set it to have your screen really red if you want. And I find that's really helped me.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Amy. John?
So Amy, I think answered or made the point just before I was about to speak. So there are some very good, relatively cheap 4K monitors, and the newer the monitor these days, the better the technology is. And so, for example, to Amy's point just now, a lot of them have soft lighting, warm lighting, specific blue light filters. So, I mean, depending on your price point, you probably only need to spend a couple of £100 to get a very good 4K monitor, which is, you know, miles better than the standard monitor you get on a laptop these days.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, John. So we've got quite a few different tips there. So let's move on to the next question.
Jane, I think Jane, if we've got time for Jane, if you want to come in.
Sorry,
yeah. What I meant to say before, sorry, I was really nervous.
All right. We're all friends here.
Yeah, what I meant to say before was you can actually get something called Access to Work. Don't know if anybody knows about this. So if you have got a condition like a migraine or something like dyspraxia, you can apply. It's a government website, and you can apply for technology. So you can apply for software. So it might be like a dragon dictation or something to read to you. So if anybody has got a diagnosis, it might be worth just going on the website and applying for that. I think it takes about 4 months, and then you get a phone call, and I think you have to give evidence as well. But I think for me, I work on the screen a lot, and it's a big problem. So where I work, actually, they've got like a filter on my computer. And they've also put filters on the strip lights as well, which has made a big difference. But I have my mobile phone on black and white.
Brilliant. That's some really useful tips there, Jane. And I think, Kevin, I've just seen you put the link for Access to Work in the chat, so it's there. Lorraine, I think you've got your hand up, sweetheart.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not actually Lorraine, but I'm using my partner's tablet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got you.
No. Very quickly, just to add, and it's not why I came on, what the question I put a while ago, so but that doesn't matter. The only thing I would add about screens is I've had the same problem, and I've spoken to a computer expert, and he says one of the things it's to do with is what's called the refresh rate of the screen. Lower the refresh rate, the better. So you have to go into the specs, the technical specs of the screen to see what sort of refresh rate you've got, and if you can get one that's got a lower one, then that might help. I to try it yet because I only recently came across that fact. But anyway, that's that from me. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. It's really useful.
If on that, Kelly, if I can ask everyone who's contributed today and anyone who watches the video next week, if you can email me any links or details, it doesn't have to be now, but later. What I'll try and do is collate those together and put them on our website. So we've got a little section about how to deal with monitors, because this day and age, we all have to look at screens.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. So it's a really good topic we've covered today. So
Yeah,
thanks
brilliant.
everyone on that. Thank you.
Okay, so the next question is from Natalie. She has reoccurring BPPV and triple PD, and she's planning to start a family. Her biggest concern is how she'll cope after looking after children with her ongoing conditions, particularly with having poor balance, not being able to look down easily, and when dizziness symptoms are at their worst. She'd like to hear from parents in the group with similar long-term vertigo conditions in terms of how they found it and any tips of advice. Lovely question, Natalie. So, parents in the group, what have you got for us? Anastasia?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I have 3-month-old son, and I was diagnosed with triple PD actually a month before I found out I was pregnant. So in terms of, and I'm not gonna lie, it was very challenging for me, if I'm honest. And it was particularly scary when I was pregnant and I was worried that I'm gonna fall, I'm gonna lose the baby. But I didn't fall. So basically I just adjusted my lifestyle. So I make sure if I go down the stairs, I hold the handrail and, all other sort of, obvious safety precautions that I was taking. So the first 3 months of Mark's life were quite difficult for me as well. So in terms of looking after a newborn, what I would recommend is getting a doula. And you can get a doula. Basically, it's a woman who has experience with newborns and who can come and help you a few hours a day. They can be they cost from £20 to £35 an hour. It was expensive for us, but we didn't really have a choice because we don't have family living closely to us. But reliance on family and friends was quite significant. And what I'm doing at the moment, my father is visiting. What he does, he takes Mark for long walks. So he does 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. And this allows me to just sit in a dark room and try to sort of reset my brain. What else can I add? There is a lot, but one thing I can say that I don't remember the name of the person who asked that question, but if they want to get in touch with me to have a chat off the phone, I'm very happy to provide my details to Kevin.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah,
brilliant.
I'm sure we can sort that out.
Can I just add that you just queued me up wonderfully for that, Anastasia. I bang this drum every meeting, so apologies to the older meeting, the older members of the group. We run something called member-to-member contact network. It's where you can opt in. You just have to email me. If you opt in, we share your email and or phone number, it's up to you, with your first name, your diagnosis, and roughly whereabouts do you live in the world. That goes on a list that's then shared with every other member that's opted in, and it gives you this amazing ability to contact anyone on that list at any time. And all I can tell you, over the years, there's been some brilliant friendships born from this. And the other thing I would add is it's so nice to hear from others that have got your conditions, that don't be afraid to reach out if you do join the member-to-member network. I'd reach out to everyone because it's lovely to get that contact. Because remember, another thing to remember about us all having these different conditions, we're all in different situations. Some of us have got the most amazing support groups, family, friends. Others have got no one. So the more you can reach out to other members, the better, please. And it can be a text, it can be an email, but you've got to opt in to the member group. I'll put a link to the right page on our website of how to do it. I am going to publish a new list next week, so it's a brilliant time if anyone wants to get on it. We only update the list about 4 times a year. We do, if there's special appeals, we'll put 1 or 2 members in touch with each other directly who may not be on member to member, but the member to member contact network, I can't recommend it enough. Yeah, the reason we put where you're based is if you're close enough to each other, you can end up if you're able to get out and about, you can actually physically meet and spend time with each other. Sorry, Kelly, I'll shut up again. I'll put that link on. But
no, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. So Anastasia, it's from. So she's put, to those who suffer from triple PD and or by vestibular migraine, what do you do to help yourself feel better on a bad day, or to recover faster following an acute attack? So who's going to have a stab at answering this one? Jane, go for it.
Sorry, it's me again.
No, it's absolutely fine.
I think, so I wasn't feeling great this morning. So for me, it's just reducing the demand of everything. And I do actually do meditation just for about 10 minutes every morning. Yeah, it's just about sort of dampening down any kind of demand, you know, not making telephone calls, not using the computer, not going out anywhere, maybe just listening to some music. Even sometimes for me, and I don't know if this is the same for any, well, I'm sure it is, going for a walk can be a big problem for me. So just sitting still and keeping everything really calm is the best thing for me anyway.
Brilliant, thank you for sharing that, Jane. Helen?
Like James just said, I've found meditation to be really, really helpful. I practice it probably three times a week. I attend an online session, and I found it particularly useful in the morning. So not necessarily when I'm having a bad day, because that's everything's hard. Meditation's hard on those days, but kind of just making it a regular practice so that actually I can calm my nervous system before I get to that crisis point. And on the bad days, just removing anything and everything that doesn't need to be that day. Just, yeah, you know, turning lights down, saying no to things, asking for help, you know, from my immediate family within the house. And just being kind to myself, you know, not beating myself up when that situation arises.
Yeah, that's
kind
so
of,
important,
you know, knowing that it will pass. It might take some days, but it will pass.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Helen. Andy?
That's it, I'm off mute. Well done. Hi, sorry.
Hi.
I found that with heading things off, actually, if I think I'm going to have a really bad spell, I found that breathing exercises, deep breathing, but breathing from the stomach, not from the chest, helps. Because if you get tense, your shoulders rise and your whole body goes tense in that area. Whereas if you breathe, if you try and relax, physically try to relax your shoulders and breathe from your stomach, that can help. And also I combine that with doing some exercises that the vestibular physiotherapist gave me, you know, sort of looking sideways as fast as you can and then up and down, trying to convince my brain that it's not actually happening. And I'm not explaining it very well, but the exercises are to retrain your brain.
Yes.
And I found that those exercises, if anyone has ever tried them or not even tried them, help me a lot anyway.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Andy. Okay, so lots of useful tips hopefully there for you, Anastasia.
Kelly, just a quick comment, I promise. The question said, how do you help to feel better? And that, because again, through my own experience, I remember being so depressed on so many days, going, oh my goodness, it's going to be one of those days. And the thing that it never stopped the awfulness of the symptoms, but what I did eventually learn, and it took me far too long because I didn't join a support group. I don't think there was one in those days, but what worked for me is if you give yourself permission to have really, really awful days, and it doesn't matter, you're entitled to it, and there's nothing you can kind of do about it. So what you don't want to be doing is adding to the misery by telling yourself this is awful, it shouldn't be happening, and what's going to, you've got to kind of go, right, today's a bad day. The good news is it will pass. You are going to have probably a good day tomorrow or a better day. And I just felt I'd suddenly found a way of taking the mental pressure off myself by just accepting some days are truly awful, and the sooner that day passes, the better.
It just goes back to that being kind to yourself thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But and it honestly, it worked for me. Whether it was a Jedi mind trick, I don't know. But it suddenly, I was able to have a bad day and go, great, nothing I can do, but don't add to it by beating yourself up. You just go, right, that's what it is. Don't try and do things. I was, trying to be a sales director and all sorts, and it was kind of realizing the world wouldn't end if I had to have that day off, and I could pick things up again when I could actually look at a screen and it wasn't moving. I'd probably work a bit better the next day rather than being a fool and trying to battle on. So it's understanding your limitations, but don't be cross with yourself, because it's not your fault, and it's fine to know that today's going to be a better day. So I'll shut up again.
Okay. I can see they've got a few more hands have popped up whilst Kevin's been talking. So Catherine.
Yeah, I think it's a really excellent question. For me, it happened after a hysterectomy, and it changed my whole life. Actually, I had a full-time practice as a therapist, and I had to cut it in half, and I've even semi-retired at this point after 3 years. What I can say is exactly what Kevin said. I had to have a realization within myself that, my life has changed and it's not what I planned, and I wasn't happy about that. And I had to go through grieving stages a little bit and come out the other side. But I would unplug the phones and I would lay down in my bed with my little Maltese, and I would just kind of cocoon, because it gave my head peace. Everything needed to stop. And that's the way that I could get peace. And, it helped me relax my neck muscles, my shoulder muscles, and, which, leads me back to the gentleman that spoke before, I think, about the exercises. That was one of my questions, maybe, which will come up later, because I find that it's in my eyes that will make things worse. So I stay away from things that will bother my eyes when I have a flare-up. And I'm not sure that that's the right thing to do, but maybe that will come up later.
Brilliant. Thank you, Catherine. Claire?
Actually, I think Kevin and yes, and Catherine have said it all, really. But definitely that thing about not beating yourself up and not sort of ruminating on all the reasons why the flare-up has happened. I used to do an awful lot about that and tell myself it was all my fault, and now it would be weeks until it had settled down again. So it's that, not ruminating and not projecting forward. And I actually would quite consciously say to myself, tomorrow will be better, rather than tomorrow's going to be even worse, which I have to say was what I used to do. So even when I was feeling, that it was going to be better the next day, I would just say to myself, tomorrow will be better. And yes, I think mindfulness, self-compassion is very, very useful in terms of just calming down the sympathetic nervous system, which gets in such a state with flare-ups. It is incredibly useful and has really changed my life, definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, Claire. Maria? You're on mute still, Maria.
There.
Okay, start again. That's it.
Okay, start again. Sorry. Thank you, everybody. So many amazing tips, and it's just really comforting for all of us. But yes, I agree with everything that has been said, but really wanted to endorse the benefit of when you have, you know, a very sudden attack. It obviously raises your anxiety levels beyond the roof, really, and the benefit of trying to get into a habit of just stopping and concentrate on your breathing. It is quite remarkable. It's hard to do initially, but it is really worthwhile pursuing. Not that I want people to have to practice breathing, you know, for such a negative reason. It's good for everybody, whether or not you have any health issues. So deep breathing, yeah, I've found it to be really helpful just recently. Actually, it's a new one, but excellent.
Brilliant.
No, excellent.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It sounds like there's been, you know, some really good discussion so far and lots of tips. So yeah, very useful. Okay, let's move on to Vilma's question now. So bear with me because it's a bit wordy for me. So she said that she suffered with tinnitus since 1986. During that time, she's had one episode of vertigo. Her biggest problems now are unsteadiness on her feet and balance issues. And things got worse in 2020. She saw an ENT consultant in her area, had an MRI scan on her head, and they found a small vessel disease for which she takes, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it, some medication, let's say. It also showed up a very tiny tumour on her left temporal bone, and now she's on a wait and watch. She's attended a vestibular rehab clinic, and that has helped, but things are getting worse again. So she's wondering if someone in the group may be able to share similar balance issues and what they did to help manage it.
Yeah, I think this sounds, Kelly, as though it's balance plus other complications.
Yes, absolutely.
Which I know some members definitely have got these competing conditions going on, and the problem is, I guess, knowing what's causing what.
Yeah.
As we know, even within balance, it's very difficult to know. But let's see. I see Helen's got a hand up.
Helen, what have you got?
Hi. I also have a brain tumour. I have a vestibular schwannoma, which is a brain tumour that affects your hearing and balance nerves. I find Pilates really, really useful. I go to a private studio where I have a one-to-one session where I can specifically work on my balance. And actually, it kind of keys into what we've just been talking about, because I actually concentrate on my breath work a lot in that time. So I think movement, keep moving as much as you can, whether it be Pilates or just anything that kind of just keep challenging it in a safe way.
Yeah.
But it's so frustrating not knowing what's the tumour, what's the, in my case, triple PD. I also have tinnitus. I went to my GP yesterday because I've had a particularly bad few days, and she hadn't heard of triple PD, and she just suggested that I went to A&E and they could give me a scan. Well, I knew that wasn't necessary. She was obviously covering her own back. She was trying to be safe in the event of something catastrophic happening. And yeah, it is incredibly hard just working out what's what. But I think sometimes it's less important what's the tumour and what's the triple PD, and just trying to generally manage what is going on.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that, Helen. Just kind of following on from Helen, I know for myself, one of the things I found really useful is similar to Pilates. It's called Body Balance. It's one of the Les Mills classes. They often do it at the gym, but you can also access it online. And it's a mixture of Tai Chi, Pilates and yoga. And that's always been something that I found very useful. Even if you can only, do a couple of tracks and do the, the movements to that, just a little bit can really help as well with managing symptoms.
That's good. Yeah, it is. It's a moving feast, all of this. And again, we all draw on our own experience. My experience was, if it was the day of a bad attack with my Meniere's, forget trying to move or do anything, because the brain wasn't going to cooperate at all, and it was agony just trying to move my head. But within a day of an attack, it was, as someone mentioned before, it was a case of, which it seems really not intuitive, but the more you try and move, the easier it gets to move, which we put down to the brain relearning how to move again, almost like resetting. But it is so difficult, because I've been through periods where rehab didn't help at all, because for whatever reason, my body, my brain wasn't prepared to go with it. And then other times when these rehab, I would come out feeling like a new person. So all I would say to everyone is, try everything, keep trying everything, and things that might not work now, you might be surprised in 6 months could be working. And of course, that doesn't dismiss, always where you can see the experts, because they should know more than we do. But it is one of those where I think I'm reminded of something in marketing we call A/B testing. It's where we send emails out trying to sell things, and you try sending different messages to see what works. Well, we need to kind of do A/B testing on ourselves and keep trying different things. And the one thing I'd say is challenge. If you've been doing this for a few years, challenge any assumptions you built up in the early times that those things might not apply to you. I was convinced early days that I couldn't drink caffeine. I tried it again 2 years later and became a coffee addict and drank cans of because it just didn't affect me. Whereas if I'd have stayed with that early belief, I would have missed out on years of Coca-Cola. Other brands of cola are available, but honestly, it's so difficult. Keep trying things, and as was said there, it kind of doesn't matter where these symptoms are coming from or what didn't work in the past. What works today for you, and with that mental ability of overcome, just say, right, I'm going to try it. Let's give it a go again. And it's definitely, I can tell you, the more you can put into it, the more you are determined to try different things, the more you're going to get from it and get to a better place early on, which I know is not possible. Some days you just want to curl up and leave it, but
yeah, every day is going to be different, and there's always going to be challenges
absolutely.
that you're going to have to face. And it's just like some days you'll be able to, I don't know, go for a 10-mile walk, and then other days you can't even get out of your bed. That's just the way it is sometimes, and it's just about kind of trying different things that at different days and sort of seeing how you get on. And just, I think, definitely just be kind to yourself in terms of we've got this thing, we've got to live with it, and some days are going to be tougher than others, but we can get through this, and it's not our fault. Okay, let's move on to a question from Norma then. So she said that as she's got older with Meniere's, her previous poor balance has got worse. It's not the usual for her to stumble and fall, but sometimes the result of a fall is just a bruised pride. But there have been occasions where she's hurt herself quite badly and needed surgery. Currently for her shoulder, and even more recently, she's fallen again, damaging her right wrist this time, which now also requires surgery as well. It's just so frustrating and demoralising. I totally feel for you, Norma. So she's asked, for those who of us are fallers, how do you cope with your falls and subsequent injuries? And also, how do you manage to stay confident and positive when you know that you're like to have further falls, injuries, pain in the future? So who's experienced kind of falls with their conditions, and how have they kind of managed that?
We've got no fallers. That's good. I can.
Oh, Claire.
There we go.
Sorry, Kevin.
I'm Claire.
Hi there. I've had a few falls. I don't know whether they're directly caused by Meniere's or the symptoms, but I am a bit suspicious. 2 years ago, I broke my wrist. 10 years ago, before I was diagnosed, where I was having symptoms of Meniere's but hadn't gone to the GP. I came off my bike and broke both my elbows. I have had somebody from the council out who has done some adaptations in my house. It was free. I have handrails in the shower and the bathroom, which I do find really, they're more of a comfort rather than a necessity. But if I were to have an attack whilst in the bathroom area, I know I can hold them. In the garden where I broke my wrist, I'm about to have that area altered just to make sure I can still garden, but that I won't have to navigate over raised beds, for example, just to make it a bit safer. So I think it's looking at your environment and thinking, well, I have a disability, therefore I'm going to make it as disabled access safe as possible. It just gives you more the confidence that if you were to fall, rather than going down, you're able to hold things, or that you're not going to land on something. I think it's just the reassurance. So I hope any of that helps.
No, it's very helpful, Claire. Just a follow-up question. In terms of the access from the council, was that quite easy to sort of resolve?
Yeah, I just phoned up, explained the problem I was having, and they sent out an occupational therapist to talk to me. It was all free.
Oh, that's yeah, because I've not heard of that before. It's not come up. I don't know if you've heard of that, Kevin, but I think that might be a useful resource for us to look into.
Yeah, we'll investigate that, and so I suspect it's going to vary between local authorities.
Of course.
Yeah.
But we'll see what we can discover on that. That's
yeah.
Really good.
I did explain that it was a disability, and I kind of kept saying how, rather than explaining I have a vestibular condition and what it was, I kind of rather sided with the fact that how it affects me.
Yeah.
So that it wasn't able to be belittled. Does that make sense? And that
absolutely.
They were hearing the problems I was experiencing rather than just the diagnosis, which I think sometimes people can dismiss. Because most people at some point in their life have a little bit of dizziness, but this is kind of a bit extreme. But yeah, in my area,
we're considered hidden disability, isn't it?
Yeah, they were even offering, because they didn't really understand how they could help me, but they were even offering me, do I need a laptop? And, you know, certainly social inclusion was addressed, and I'm now part of a group of people who do some art together. So they were very good, and yeah, I would definitely contact your council and just ask.
Yeah,
and just say I have a disability and this is how it affects me, rather than the actual. I didn't even need to give them any proof or evidence. It was simply what is available to me in my area, because I'm experienced in this and I'm struggling.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that, Claire. I think that's going to be potentially something really valuable.
Thank you.
Helen?
I'm on mute again. Hi, can you hear me? Thanks, Claire. That was really helpful. Thank you. There is something else that might be worth mentioning that I found really beneficial, is that because a lot of the falls happen when I'm actually out and about around the town, shopping, things like that. So I've actually found it very easy to get a blue badge, you know, the disability badge that you can use in your car, so you can get parking spaces nearer to shops and more convenient, because obviously the less distance I walk around about the town, the less likely I am to fall. So I don't know if that would help anybody else to actually wonder
Yeah.
whether they could apply for a blue badge, because when I explained my condition and gave my medications and my consultants' names, I didn't have any further questions. They just issued me with the blue badge automatically.
Brilliant.
So that might be worth other people considering
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you, Norma.
Okay, thank you.
Helen, I'll come back to you. Sorry.
That was really helpful, Norma, because I was successful in my claim for PIP, and I was offered a blue badge, but I've held off from applying for it because I was actually terrified that I be bombarded with questions and actually lose my driving license.
Yes, yeah, I do understand that. What I tend to do with mine is that I only use it on the days I need it, because there is this thing now that wasn't there before, which is hidden disabilities. They don't use the wheelchair sign anymore, whereas people automatically assume you have to be in a wheelchair to be given a blue badge. That's not the case now. But for my own sort of peace of mind, if you like, really, I tend to only use it on the days when I feel I need to use it, because I think it's good to challenge yourself and walk distances if you can. But on the days when you need to go out, but perhaps you're not walking as well as you should, then it's very, very helpful.
That's good. If I just add, Kelly, we have in our question list later on a question specifically about whether to tell the DVLA about balance conditions and so if I may, we'll come back to the driving later in the meeting, but it's good. Have anyone else with the hand up on how to deal with falls?
Yeah, Amy's got her hand up, haven't you?
Super.
Hi. I've had a few falls as well. I get drop attacks now and then. This is a very slow solution. Well, not really a solution, but one of the things I've found has helped has been trying to make sure I fall as best as I can. So over the years, I've worked really hard on balance and building up muscles around my joints, things like that. So then when I do fall, I fall better, and I can often kind of catch myself a bit better rather than just slamming straight down. And then when I do fall, I fortunately haven't broken anything. I've badly bruised myself before many times, but I haven't actually broken anything. But I just find that when I do hurt myself, then it's kind of you have a bit of an easier job recovering from it if you've got a bit of muscle there as well, and you're as obviously, I know it's hard. I'm pretty much housebound from my vertigo, so exercise is difficult, and I'm talking a very slow process over years. But yeah, I just find that trying to make sure that I'm as strong and flexible and fit as I can, then I fall better, if that makes sense.
No, totally. And all tips are good tips. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, everybody's going to have different ways of doing things. So thank you so much for sharing that, Amy.
I think the biggest problem is when you start to lose your confidence, because that can then stop you risking going out and going to places. One thing, I have to confess an interest in this, and I don't know whether it'll show on the camera. If you know what a Nordic walking pole is, this is very similar but has a different handle to take people's weight. The concept is you use two of these sticks, so you can do normal walking, whereas if sometimes with a crutch or one walking stick you end up hobbling. It's been proven in America by a company called Urban Poling, and they're coming to Britain soon. So what I hope to do is let you know when there's a chance maybe to trial some of these things. The theory is that because they are Nordic walking poles, which a lot of people use for leisure without a balance problem, they can give you a little bit of extra confidence that you can take out with you. And especially for those and we all are a little bit conscious, most of us wouldn't want to walk with a Zimmer frame. But using Nordic walking poles, it looks quite sporty normal, but it can give you that confidence that if you feel a problem with your balance, you've got these two extra poles to take your weight. So I'll report more on that hopefully in the next couple of months, that there should be some good news there. But I agree, it's all about confidence. I went through a period of drop attacks where you get no warning. It's as though somebody's shoving you to the ground. I couldn't do anything about it. I was just aware it could happen at any time, and so tried to avoid situations where that would be a major problem or a risk to other people, and had to wait until the period went. But I agree, so as ever, you'll find balance. The next thing after all your balance symptoms are how it plays with your mind. It really is so close to all of us, how it, and so that getting better, it's not just treating the balance, it's how we control the way our mind works with all this. Brilliant. Thanks, Kelly. We on to the next one.
Yep. So the next question is from Tom, and he's looking to find out if anybody suffers with a similar condition to himself. So he says he's been suffering for the past 3 years with chronic unsteadiness. He has no problem with sitting or lying down, but as soon as he stands, walks or turns, he suddenly feels very lightheaded and unstable, and he's nervous about walking in case he loses his balance. He's been given a diagnosis of central vestibular dysfunction and is undertaking neurophysiotherapy, but would like to know if, like I said, if anyone else suffers with this and how they cope and gain confidence. So has anybody got any similar experiences to Tom that they'd like to share? John?
Yeah. I suppose it's similar in a way that because I've got damage to my vestibular nerves on both sides.
Right, yeah.
I have unsteadiness all the time. And the only thing I can suggest is that it tells you to sit still and lie down. That's what it wants you to do, because that's when you don't feel it. So the best thing I can say is keep moving.
Okay.
You could try all of the physiotherapy in the world, but it doesn't replicate normal day-to-day life. So just try keep moving every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I can suggest to him.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
And you do get, your body does get more used to it as the time goes on.
Yeah, time is a big factor, isn't it, with these sorts of things? Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you, John. Andy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hi. I get that similar feeling as well with the balance, and I'm all right sitting down. I'm fine at the moment, but if I move my head too quickly at one side, then I get that sort of swooping feeling and unsteadiness. And I mean, I can stand at the sink, I can do the washing up, but this is on it's not nowhere near one of my worst days, but it's not a good day. But I've also found that the way that I can do it again is going back to the breathing, and stopping, taking those few breaths, getting it under control, and then carrying on. It's not a be all and end all, but it does certainly help with moving around if I'm outside the house.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Andy. Anastasia?
Yes, thank you. I maybe I'm barking at the wrong tree, but the symptoms sound similar to my symptoms, and I have triple PD. So it's persistent postural perceptual dizziness. And I'm still sort of navigating my way through this condition. And what didn't help is that I was diagnosed with it just before I got pregnant, so they couldn't treat me for 9 months. But I've been reading a lot on that, and I think part of the question Tom asked was how to sort of cope with that, and what to do. I don't yet have an answer, but if it's triple PD, then the treatment might be a little bit different from other conditions. So if Tom hasn't considered triple PD, maybe it's worth looking into this, because I read a bit about it, and I know that, for example, SSRI medication can be quite helpful, and my consultant is currently trying amitriptyline on me as well to desensitize the brain. So there might be some treatments. Triple PD is a very, very new condition, so there is not much information on it. But it sounds to me very much like triple PD, but obviously there's very little information. I'm not a doctor, just thought I'd share.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Anastasia. Okay, so we'll move on to our next question. I think Kevin kind of alluded to this one earlier regarding the DVLA. So the question we've got is, should someone advise the DVLA that they have a balance condition? They've said that they feel safe to drive, they do not have unexpected vertigo attacks that they know other people can suffer from. So the query is, are they okay to drive? Because they're worried that they need a license to drive for work. So I know this is something that we've kind of briefly mentioned already, but what are other people's experiences? Have they told the DVLA about how their conditions? Not, if, why not? Claire?
Hi there. I was told that you have to legally warn the DVLA and your insurance company if you have a vertigo attack. If you don't and they find out afterwards, it could be that they'll remove your insurance, and if you have an accident, you would be an uninsured driver. I knew that when I went to the doctor to say that I was having vertigo in quite a bad way, that I would probably end up losing my driving license. So I delayed going to the GP for a number of years. Eventually, when I did, I had to just say, look, yeah, I don't have any warning before my vertigo attacks, and I've ended up losing my driving license. But the key question around all of this was, do you have warning? If you have warning, they will allow you to keep your license, it seems, but you still have to declare it to your insurance company and the DVLA so that they can record it, and then you won't be liable if you have an accident.
Brilliant.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Claire. Amy?
Bye.
I had similar. I was told I had to tell the DVLA and insurance companies. I've found that sometimes insurance companies don't care, but I've made them write it down anyway, just to cover my back in case of anything. I've had to surrender my license twice over the past a long time, 20 years or so, 15 years. It was when I was having drop attacks that made the difference. When I had when I started having drop attacks, because there was no warning, they took my license, and then once I was free from drop attacks for I think a year, my consultant was happy that meant that side of it was under control. She wrote me a letter, I got my license back, and then several years later the drop attacks came back, and so I had to let the DVLA know things had changed again, and they took my license again. So yeah, it's that warning. They were perfectly happy for me to drive when I was having vertigo attacks, even when I was having massive vertigo attacks, as long as I had a little bit of a warning, for enough warning that I could pull over on the hard shoulder or something if I needed to get out of the way and be safe. So it doesn't necessarily mean you'll lose it, it's just whether you get a warning or not. But yeah, do definitely tell them, make sure you cover your back just in case something does happen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. I think from recollection, when I last looked at it, which it was a little while ago, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's a list of different conditions which you have to disclose legally to them, and there are some of them that are covered. I don't know if anybody else has seen it or knows what the list is, but Claire?
Hi, there is a list, and if you have any dizzy conditions, you have to fill in a DIZ1 form, because balance and dizziness is in the list. The other conditions are numerous, probably not really applicable to us, but yeah, it's not just the vertigo attacks, it's any kind of dizziness. You have to fill out the DIZ1 form. But if you state, I can stop a vehicle, I think you have to be honest. If you can't stop a vehicle, I do think you need to be honest, because let's face it, you could kill either yourself, your family members, or a random person on the street. And I think coming to the realization of that for me was what made me think, no, I can't go on with this anymore. It's happening too regularly. It's happening, and I no longer have a warning. Because I think when I first had dizziness issues, I did get warnings, I knew. Now I don't. I think you do have to just be honest, because the consequences, if you're not honest, you know, are far worse than losing your job. And I did have a job where, you know, I worked in a Royal Mail depot with vehicles around me, and I can't do that anymore. I needed a driving license to work within that environment, and I now don't do that job. So it's been a massive game changer. But it was also a relief when I surrendered my license. I no longer have to think, I no longer have to worry about getting points, because points don't mean prizes. And also I think, well, you know, I'm not going to harm anybody. And that was kind of a relief of burden, of concern, of constantly assessing, am I safe to be doing this? So yeah, honesty is the best, because if you get caught out, the consequences are too dire.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the best, everyone.
Helen, did you want to add anything?
No, it's okay. I was just around the form because I got married a couple of years ago, so actually my license does need changing, and it's one of those things that's sat there.
Oh, yeah.
And I know I hadn't actually noticed the dizziness question, but I know that I need to state about my brain tumour, although I believe that the tumour that I have doesn't actually, it's one of the only ones that you don't have to, it's a bit of a grey area, and I think it is around the balance issue and around the dizziness. So yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I think, as some really wise words spoken today, the key is you never want to think you're putting yourself or others' lives at risk. That's got to be the overriding issue. But the second key to that is, if you are in control of a car and you know you've got a warning, you're going to be fine, because you're able to pull that car over, stop driving, you will be fine. And I am conscious of where people are. They desperately need their jobs. They're under pressure to drive to work or drive through work. There is going to be that pressure on you. Bear in mind that if you're in a bad accident, crash, whatever, there is a chance they could access into medical records. And if you were found to have a condition but not declared it, I'm sure we're all aware insurance companies, rightly or wrongly, look for every excuse not to pay out, and especially if these are big accidents. So you don't want to risk life. You don't want to risk financial ruin, but it is difficult. Myself personally, I was quite lucky. My consultant, every time I needed it, would do a letter to confirm my symptoms were well managed, which I made sure the DVLA had copies of when I needed to. But it's real difficult. I think the key is for everyone you might get a balanced condition, but it doesn't automatically mean you're going to lose your license. It's about knowing you can be in control of that car. And incidentally, I'm sure a lot of you will get this. A lot of people don't get it, have never had a balanced condition. You can have real unsteadiness on your feet, but when you're sitting in a car in a seat and holding a wheel, myself anyway, it doesn't bother me at all, because I'm not balancing, and I'm perfectly able to steer a car even if I'm having a day when I wouldn't like to be playing hopscotch. So it's a weird one, but safety first, and then common sense of don't leave yourself exposed if you were ever in a bad accident. Okay, Kelly.
Okay, so next question. I feel we've touched a little bit upon this already, so we might not need to go too deep into this one. It's from John, and he's after people's experience of using blue light blocking devices to help with light sensitivity for vestibular migraine. He's spoken about how there's various options, including glasses, LED lights, etc. And he's also seen about green light being used to relieve from migraines as well. So what's our experiences of blue light and or green light devices?
Come on, somebody needs to put the hand up or you'll hear from me
Helen?
again. Helen.
I don't have any experience, but I know that it comes up a lot on the Dr. Chatterjee podcasts. So if you look through his podcasts, I'm sure you'll come across something. He often does discounts that run along with the program.
Yeah, there you go.
Not heard of that one, so that's interesting. Thank you, Helen.
Just tell you what little I know. Again, it's my working across the water with Vida. A partner that Vida are looking to work with is a company called Avalux. I'll put the link on. They claim they've got by far the best technology for preventing migraines, but it also obviously helps with light sensitivity for ourselves. I'm going to put the link on. The problem, the good thing about them, they know it doesn't work for everyone, so they give everyone a 60-day money back, no quibble guarantee. The bad news is they are not inexpensive glasses you'll find on Amazon. But there is these are actually scientifically proven. They've gone through clinical trials. That there is, unfortunately, with migraine glasses, a lot of people who will just use a coloured lens and claim it will do the trick, and it might not. So I'll put that link on. I will put this in a member's email. I'm quite interested if people will go and have a look at that site anyway and tell me what they think. It's American, but again, it's like many American companies, they're coming over here. You can buy these products here, but they're not cheap. We're talking £200–300 for a pair of glasses. Their point is, theirs are the real thing and will make your life so much better by wearing them. So that's a small price to pay, but that's very subjective. But I'll put the link up there. There's definitely evidence. Their evidence is if you've got migraine, it can reduce up to 25% of migraine attacks. So it must be doing something. And again, you won't be surprised with this, balance conditions, we've all got differing levels of tolerance of light levels. So these may or may not work for your own condition. I used to find very simply reducing light input with sunglasses worked to treat. Wasn't very scientific, but it just used to ease the pressure. But again, I'll put this on the email after the meeting and I'll share the link today. I'll be interested to see what people think. Again, it's this thing of A/B testing. Try anything once.
Mm.
If it helps and improves your quality of life, it's got to be worth doing. It really has. We've got hands up there. I think.
John?
Yes, I just maybe add a bit of detail to the question. So my symptoms are very much affected by, let's say, good light or bad light. So good light, actually a nice sunny day, not too bright, is perfect. Symptoms go away. A cloudy, snowy, foggy day, the light changes. Then that's lovely to do some research. And that's when, if you look at it, there's a lot of research out there about the spectrum of light and what it does to potentially trigger a migraine or maybe alleviate it. And so most of the research points to blue light blocking in some way is good for those with photosensitivity. And I did some more research. It's one of the global migraine conferences that are held every year. And there's some more research out of the US that specifically looked at green light spectrum to alleviate the symptoms. So instead of, if you get an attack, instead of going to a dark room, immersing yourself in green light has been found to be very good. Again, they've done various studies, and that actually. So I contacted them. I'll send the link to you, Kevin. At the moment, they're only shipping out of the US, but they will ship to I guess a sort of postal service you get in the UK. Again, like all these things, they're not cheap. But to Kevin's point, I'll try everything once. So I might, in the interest of research for this group, I'm going to get the green light from the US, and I'll try it and see if Olivia's things. I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But specifically on blue light, there's again, sort of blue light LED. So I'm surrounded by bad quality LEDs that are flooding me with blue light. These help. But again, you can get LEDs that are specifically, I guess, done to cut out blue light. So again, they're not cheap. Each LED is about 30 quid. But again, so I'm up for trying anything once that actually might leave. So I'll do the blue light LEDs as well and let you guys know.
Yeah,
the reason I was happy to mention the Avalux is the fact they guarantee this full money refund. So that to me is great, because it means you get the ability to try it. If you're not happy, it doesn't work.
And so, Kevin, both the block blue light LED will give you money back as well.
Good.
And so will the LA green light lamp. I guess they all know that sometimes people's symptoms are so varied, it won't work for everybody. But again, the same thing, they'll give you money back.
I think that also is a very good indicator of genuine organisations where they're happy to do that. I've certainly seen some people offering things at the cheaper end of the spectrum where there is absolutely no money back guarantee, and it makes you wonder if they know they're just selling you blue lenses. But good, excellent, thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so our next questions, I'm going to roll a couple into one because they're all about financial benefits, and so it makes sense to do that. So Andy's asked that he needs to apply for financial benefits to help him with his balance condition, specifically access to work, employment support allowance and PIP. So would like to know if any members can offer advice. And then
Kelly, sorry if I just I did hear from Andy earlier, he's already made good progress on that for himself. But it is, I'm going to put a link on our website. We've got a lovely section that deals with a lot of do's and don'ts. But I do think it's a really good point to discuss today with others. So
we've
Andy
briefly
may not
mentioned access to work, haven't we? No, I think I remember a link going in from, I want to say Jane, but she totally might be wrong. So we talked about that. So what about other people? If they gone down this route, how did they get on? Can offer any tips that we've not covered already today?
There we go. There's Andy.
Yeah, Andy.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Kevin, for saying that. I did contact you to say that I have made some progress. I actually went to the Citizens Advice Bureau on Monday, having already looked at the link that you notified me of on the Life on the Level site. They reiterated a lot of what was said on the site, but they were also very helpful insofar as they did a check on which benefits I was personally able to apply for. They basically do kind of like it's almost like a fit test or a credit. You tell them what's wrong with you, what your circumstances are financially, and then they say what benefits you can apply for. They do it online. If you have any problems with filling forms in or access to a computer or just general advice, they also do a service whereby they will help you fill the forms in. So that's the progress that I specifically made, but I haven't actually gone through and started filling any of those in because I wanted to go through this meeting today before I finally decide. But the one thing I really did have to do was get a fit note from my doctor, which I've been putting off for 2 years, which was a bit remiss on my part. But ever the optimist, I thought I was going to get better and not need it, and was going to be able to get to work. But it's got to the point where I can't. So
yeah. I would say, Andy, when you come to fill it out, as I think it mentions on our website, do take the view that quite unfairly, people somewhere are going to be looking not to pay out benefits.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And that, I think, is absolutely obscene, that we've
Yeah.
got a service that seems hell-bent on not delivering benefits to people who need them.
Yeah.
But take the view that you need to, I think someone put it really well, whatever your worst day is, that's what you need to describe. Because if you start being reasonable and talking about average days or nice days, it's going to work against you.
Yeah.
And I say, and I can't apologise for it, and I hope someone watches this who works behind the scenes and wants to put me right, but I've heard far too many stories of people who deserve those benefits. That's what they're for, and they're being denied them.
Yeah.
And it seems to me the system is just crooked, and it's such a shame. So I would say labour every point you can, and don't spare any of the details from them. And by the sounds of it, you'll still get kicked back and have to go again and again.
Yeah, but the other thing is also, I think I got it from members' comments on the site, but also from the Citizens Advice Bureau, is keep a diary.
Yeah.
Keep a diary, not just of what you have done, more specifically of what you haven't been able to do.
Yeah.
Whether that is I haven't been able to take the dog for a walk, or whether it's I haven't been able to get my socks on. Make a note of what you can't do. And those are the points that you need to put on the form.
No, excellent. Thanks, Andy.
Helen,
Got I've got another Andy. We've not heard from Andy. Andy Corney. Come on in, Andy.
Yeah, I was on lifetime DLA and got transferred to PIP. When I first applied for it, I was turned down. So I did a mandatory reconsideration, got turned down again. Then I had to go to a tribunal to finally get it back. But I found through colleagues at work who do benefits advice that when you fill in the form for PIP, you must do it as when you're on your worst day. Don't say what you can do, it's what you can't do on your worst day.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for those tips, Andy.
If
Helen?
anyone needs any help on it, I'm available to help anyone
Oh,
on it.
perfect. Thank you for that, Andy.
Right.
That's really kind of you to offer that support.
Thanks.
Helen?
Yeah, I would reiterate about the worst day. I successfully applied for it and got it first time round. I actually paid a private occupational health therapist to help me fill the forms in. Had a lot of support documents. It was a horrendous application to go through. It really felt like an interrogation, and it really knocked my confidence for a long time. You know, so although I was successful, it was a very negative experience. I'm more than happy to chat with you, Andy, because I got PIP, and also I'm in the support group for employment support allowance. So I'm more than happy to chat through what is a very long process if you want any support at any time.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Helen. Lots of lovely support being offered, which is great. Maria?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah, just endorse what everybody else has been saying so far. I was able to get PIP as well, but just be absolutely honest and explicit about how awful it makes your life. As in, if you have to crawl to get to the bathroom, say that. If you have to sit down when you're peeling vegetables, say that. You just have to absolutely spell it out. And don't put, yes, exactly, say what you can't do and say how hard it is to do simple things. You have to sit down, for example, to put your socks on. Just be brutally honest and just paint it as bad as it really is, you know, getting through the day sometimes. And yeah, likewise, I'm more than happy to chat about anything to do with the PIP form.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Maria. Sorry, Kevin?
Thank you.
Got Richard.
Yeah.
Come in, Richard.
Oh, hey. Hey.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. What I was going to say is with the PIP, there's like when you fill in the form, you should put like a supporting letter with the PIP claim form.
Okay.
But there's a way of laying out the form. So as well as making it sound like it's on your worst day, there's a format to actually laying it out.
Okay.
Do you know the different sectors they put, like daily tasks, what you can, what you can't do, moving and everything. If you lay it out in a format in Word, and you just you write it like that,
Yeah.
that it carries more weight. I was
Yeah.
lucky that my sister worked for the WDP, so I was able to write the letter.
Brilliant. Yeah, that sounds really
So
useful.
yeah, I was lucky.
There, Richard.
No,
Yeah.
good. Thanks, Richard.
Andy, do
Andy
you want to
again,
come
I
back
think.
in?
Yeah, come back in, Andy.
Yeah, can I just say I had an assessor out to my house and they gave me some exercises to do, but when I actually saw their report, they actually lied about the what they made me do.
Yeah.
So
I can't sort of
I had my
say
late
this-
wife with me then for the assessment, so I wrote back saying your nurse is lying. And
Yeah, it's
my wife
shocking.
was there, she can back me up.
Yeah.
So
But I think all we can do is just try and make everyone aware this is what you're up against. It's so awful because I know I'm sure many are like this. When you're meeting someone, you don't want to come across as a burden or complaining. We tend to understate our problems. In this one situation, it's totally the other way. And as you say, Andy, if you're going to get people who are misreporting what they see, we really are up against it. But it's what we're here for, guys. And I say, anyone watching this video in the future, don't underestimate the difficulty in claiming those benefits. And Andy and a few others have said they're always on hand to help other members if you're about to go through this process. Because take all the help you can get, and then you might get what you deserve.
I also say with the assessor coming to your house or you going to them, when they write the report, you do have a right to see that report.
Yeah, good.
So make sure if you get turned down, make sure you get a copy of that report sent through to base your appeal on.
Super. Thanks, Andy. Very good.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, guys. So only a couple more questions to go then. So next one is from Carolyn. She said that she suffers from BPPV for many years. And one of her biggest issues is when she's in a group of people talking, whether it's a small group or a large group, and also whether there's music around, she can become so unbalanced and very often has to leave. Is there any way of helping her with this problem? So has anybody else experienced that? What do they do to manage it? Catherine?
Yeah, my symptoms sometimes are really aggravated by music, and I find whatever store I go into or service, there's always music playing. And I've actually gone to the manager and I have just said that I have a migraine. Could you lower, the music? And they do. The other thing is in my bag, I keep a little capsule and it has 2 ear plugs in them. And I put them on if I know I have to be somewhere where it's going to be like that. And also dark glasses. I have transition glasses and also sunglasses, anything I can do to block out the stimulation for myself.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Catherine. Some useful tips there. Richard, have you got anything to offer?
Oh, hi. Yeah. Wait there. Just a second. Oh, let's see what this is on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, what I was going to say is if you're in a group of people and you're walking and you're talking at the same time, it's a sensory overload with the system. So if you take short breaks.
Yeah, absolutely. That can
obviously,
help,
if you're
can't it?
walking and you're talking to a group of people, all your concentration is on your balance. So obviously multitasking is difficult because all your concentration is focusing on being able to walk. So if we just take like short breaks, say every 20 to 30 minutes, that
Yeah,
should
that
help.
sounds really useful.
Very good.
Brilliant. Thank you for that,
Thanks,
Richard.
Yeah.
Claire?
Hiya. I don't know whether this is a help. I found that I was really struggling with noisy situations. For example, waiting for a train, the sound of the trains going past would be distressing. And so I, like the other lady, started to use just normal headphones in my ears. But when I explained I was doing this to a family member who's a medic, they warned me against doing this. They said that the reason you've got Meniere's in the first place is because you're losing sensory input, and certainly a tinnitus is caused because you've got reduced hearing in your ear. And by actually plugging the sounds, you're actually likely to trigger worse tinnitus in the long term. So they said to only ever do that on a rare occasion or in exceptional circumstances where you have to be somewhere, but not to do it on a regular basis, because you could actually increase worse vertigo and worse tinnitus. So I don't know. They're the medic,
No, thank
not
you
me.
for that, Claire. All
But they're
contributions
saying
are useful.
don't reduce the access to the sensory information. And actually that kind of also ties in, if you think they tell you to go walking and they tell you to, in rehabilitation, to do things that trigger the vertigo in order to kind of get through it and over it. This ties into it. So if you're actually dumbing the senses down rather than exposing yourself into it, you could be leading into worse situations long term. So I don't know, I'm not the medic, but that's what I've been told. So I'm listening to them now.
Very good.
All the best.
Thank you. Claire?
Yes, I was told very much the same thing with my vertigo problems. I think for me, when I was bad with groups of friends, it would be the turning of my head from side to side that caused the problem. And that's where the vestibular exercises came in useful, because they gradually acclimatized my brain to turning my head from left to right. So I think, you have to go very gently with these things. And I know that I tried too hard with those exercises to start with, but I think that if one goes very gently with them, they do actually in the end retrain the brain so that you can turn your head from left to right and join in the conversation with less dizziness. But yeah, that was the thing that would definitely trigger my dizziness with friends, was the head movements.
Yeah, no, very
Brilliant.
good.
Thank you, Claire.
I've got a confession to make. My dirty secret every year is I go to an outdoor rock festival, but earplugs are the trick, and stand well back, and I think you'd learn where your own tolerance is if you have a tolerance for loud noise and not. And believe me, early years I had no tolerance at all, but gradually I felt I could. The earplugs really help because it takes it down. Another top tip, and I wish I'd learned this when I was younger. I used to go into, it can be business meetings or go into social situations, sitting at tables with friends, and I would never say anything. Fact is, I can hardly hear anything in my bad side. Most of my hearing's gone and I have roaring tinnitus. These days I just go, can everyone sit on my left? Otherwise I can't hear you. And if I do that at the very beginning, I have a much better time. I'm not doing this. I'm sitting on a corner and I've got people where I can genuinely hear them. And of course that works the other way. If you're ever with someone you don't want to hear, they go on my right side. But it's just being in control of trying things with earplugs, with the glasses, with even where you sit people. Don't be afraid, because nobody minds. If you always sit on the corner of a table, nobody cares, but it will make your life so much better, and means you don't have to leave early or avoid the situation. So again, where you can, take control and keep testing. Thanks, Kelly.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Kevin. Okay, so next up, we've got a question from Claire. So she said that she's been diagnosed with left side Meniere's, and until now, she'd not realised that this could happen. But she does also have fluctuating oscillopsia and hyperacusis. A friend mentioned to her that they use white noise to get to sleep, and she didn't know what this was, so looked it up. And on YouTube, and the clip also gave examples of pink and brown noise plus natural sounds mixed. At the end of listening to everything, she had vertigo, and she found this surprising, as when her tinnitus is bad, she used the Bowel-tone Calmer app to drown out the sound, and the tinnitus app doesn't trigger the vertigo. So she's asking, has anyone else found specific noise or frequencies which can trigger vertigo? John?
Yeah, I have tinnitus, and I use a smart speaker, an Alexa smart speaker, and I ask it to play all through the night a noise of a fan circulating.
Okay, yeah.
And it drowns out the tinnitus, and it doesn't give me any vertigo. And I was somebody before I got this that had to have it completely silent to sleep. I couldn't have any noise, so it's just something that works for me.
Brilliant, thank you for that, John. I think it's probably one of those things, isn't it, that different sounds and frequencies might be trigger different things for everybody. So, you know, one person might not have that result, and then other people, you know, might find it triggering of the vertigo. Amy, what's your thoughts on this one?
This isn't something I have myself, but when I was undergoing various investigations, one of the things they looked at was something called superior canal dehiscence syndrome, and sounds triggering vertigo is one of the symptoms of that. It's something to do with that you're missing a bit of bone somewhere, so sounds go in the wrong way, and the sound can trigger vertigo. So it might be worth bringing that up with your doctor to see if it's something. I think I think one of the other symptoms is you can hear your eyes moving or something like that, like you can hear things that you shouldn't because it's a different pathway. One of the things they did to test me of it was they hit a tuning fork and put it on my knee, and if I was able to hear the sound like travel through the bone or something. This was a while ago, a few years ago, so I might be misremembering this, but yeah, it's worth asking about. I think superior canal dehiscence syndrome.
That's not a mouthful, is it, Amy? Thank you for that. John, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, did you mention that she has oscillopsia as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Again, I'm familiar with that because I have it myself, and that's a symptom of having almost or complete loss of your vestibular function on both sides. So that might be worth investigating.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, John. Okay, so moving on to a question from Len. She or he, I'm not sure, confirmed vestibular neuronitis, and it was been confirmed that it's 68% loss of right vestibular nerve function. They also have diplopia, double vision, for which they have to wear glasses with a prism to correct it. This results in some distortion, which seems to interfere with the physio session exercises to restore the vestibular ocular reflex, although they are making some progress. Question is, do any members of the group have this type of situation with vision conditions and a balance condition, and any advice on how to maximize recovery? So anybody similar to Len? I cannot offer anything. John?
Yeah, again, as I said before, just to keep moving is the best bit of advice I can give, because that helps you to compensate.
Brilliant. Thank you for offering that, John. Anybody else got anything to suggest?
Well, I'm Len, although it says it's
Oh,
Lorraine.
okay, you're Len, right? Len, who says Lorraine? Got you.
It's a rather specific situation, and perhaps I'm not surprised that not any others or many of you are experiencing. But when I saw Professor Ray, he did hum and ha a bit when he learned about my double vision and how it does interfere. But if nobody else has experienced it, then thank goodness for that. And I'm glad that's one thing that I have to deal with that you don't. Just to say, I'm the first time on this forum, and
welcome then, Dylan.
I've found all contributions very helpful.
Brilliant.
And I admire everyone who has dealt with many situations I've dealt with as well, and found that very helpful. But I must say, I find what I have to put up with is of a hell of a lot less that some of the rest of you have to deal with. And so great respect to you all. The only thing I would add would be, I keep telling myself, I've been given physio exercises and to keep up with them. That's it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that, Len. I think it's really, nice to sort of hear that you're finding what we've been discussing today so helpful. And yes, there might not be people who've got exactly the same kind of experience as you, but a lot of the things are transferable in terms of the tips and the experiences and that sort of thing. So thank you for being part of it, and I'm glad that...
Kelly, have we got just 2 minutes to quickly run through? I can see a couple of questions from Richard.
Yes, I was going to finish with
those. We're going to have to be very quick, folks, because we're almost out of time.
Yeah, absolutely. So Richard, you've submitted 2 questions. I feel we've covered one already, but I particularly want to focus on the second one. So the first one was whether anyone else has got chronic migraine along with vestibular migraine and triple PD, and what's helped. So I think maybe lots of people have made some contributions around that already. But the other part that you've mentioned is the most difficult part of having such condition is he's found the actual migraine pain and pressure of the vestibular symptoms.
Yeah, I think what he's asking there, Kelly, is what do people find the worst? Is it the migraine, or is it the vestibular problem?
Yeah.
So I'd be interested there if there are people who've got both. I guess it's an academic point, but really what is the worst for you? Is it migraine, or is it the balance?
Helen?
I've got triple PD and migraine. For me, it's the migraine because it's the feeling of pressure in my head, and that's what stops me from functioning. That sends me back to bed. That stops me from driving. I can actually walk very well. Despite having lost 60-odd% of my balance function on the right, I walk very well in green spaces, but you add a migraine into that and I don't walk at all.
Okay, thank you for that, Helen.
Interesting, thanks. We've then got Kelly, question from Catherine, if we can squeeze that one in.
Yeah, last one of the day. So I thought this was a nice one to end on in terms of Catherine would like to know members' experience with what is the most helpful exercise that they have found for vestibular rehabilitation.
So what's worked for you with rehab? Any takers? Any top tips?
So I think we've had quite a bit of people mention that they do the exercises. So it's good to hear. Len, are you trying to come in?
Maria's there. Oh, Len, go on, Len.
Yeah, one of the more challenging exercises that I find particularly useful, and if I'm feeling unsteady, I can do it, but it doesn't mean that it's any good for anybody else. Is what I was told to do is walk up and down, looking ahead, but moving your head left to right as you do so. But that is a specifically vestibular thing rather than some of the other conditions that we've come across today. And just doing that can just settle me down. But as I was just saying a few minutes ago, actually doing the exercises and making yourself keep up with the exercises. The other thing I find most helpful is gardening. Out in the,
Okay, interesting.
but that's it.
No, all good tips. Maria?
Hi, yeah, on a good day, I'll definitely say the same. Getting outside and being able to walk and turn your head, that's quite an advanced skill. But on a bad day, if you could just do the exercise where you focus on the spot and turning your head from left to right, probably while sitting down.
Okay, brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Claire?
I think I've said this before another time, but when I was doing I'm much better now, but when I was doing the vestibular exercises regularly, smiling while I was doing them would sort of shut off the amygdala, the panic button in the brain. And that really helped me to do the exercises without getting too dizzy.
Yeah, I think we had some, I saw a thumbs up go up to that when you said that, Claire. So yeah, smiling is always the way forward. Definitely. Anybody
now
else?
Meredith keeps trying to message and put a hand
Oh,
up.
we've seen.
We're going to Meredith. You can
go for it, Meredith.
Go on,
Sorry,
Meredith.
I don't know why I don't have a raise hand button, but anyway, just I mentioned the ping pong, which sounds kind of wild and out there, but I think actually, was it Steve, the tennis player, who there was someone on the group who talked about that one of the things that he was a tennis pro, I think, and mentioned that his physios had suggested he play as much as he still could with his with whatever his, and that just kind of reminded me that I had seen somewhere that it's sometimes recommended, if you can do things sports that involve on any level. And I have a joint condition, so I can't do anything like lacrosse or like real tennis or whatever. And I had trouble trying to work on vestibular rehab exercises for my hypofunction after a neuritis. And so I was really struggling with some of those ones that they would give in physical therapy, but I wanted to do something. And so I tried ping pong, and I don't know actually if it has helped with the hypofunction, but the hypofunction has improved. And the ping pong is also fun, which is the only thing that's been fun about this. So I just wanted to mention it in case for anyone else it
works.
Could
There's
be
going to be a surge of
helpful.
ping pong tables in the next like half an hour on like Google or something. We're all going to be
It's a
out there.
strange thing, but we'll take it where we can get it, right?
Absolutely, you've got to try it and take the wins where you can. Thank you for sharing that, Meredith.
John, do you want
Thank
to
you
come in?
everyone for everything.
To just two quick points. One, the vestibular rehab stuff is not quick fix, so you kind of have to stick at it. You'll see if you're going to have benefit, it will take a while probably. And second point, my consultant also is very careful to say, if you're having a bad day, give yourself a break. Don't force yourself through it, because your brain is overheating. You're likely to probably trigger a bad episode. So stick at it if you can, but also give yourself a break if you're not feeling good.
Thank you for that, John.
Good words.
Some
If I
thumbs up
have
going up for that.
my other tip as well, if you can afford to get it, and some of the basic ones are quite cheap now, a treadmill. But the beauty of a treadmill, you normally can have handrails by it, and it can go really slowly. And the one thing, it sounds a little bizarre, but it really helped me tremendously, was having a TV set in front of the treadmill, watching the TV, walking, and then moving my head side to side and it was with the safety of the handrails, and it was amazing how that started to bring the balance back, and gave me a lot of confidence, and it's healthy as well because you do a bit of exercise. And just to show I've been listening.
See,
We're ready.
Somebody else is on
to
it
play.
already.
Good.
Brilliant.
I think we are about there. We
Absolutely.
could go on forever, but all I say is what fabulous questions, and what even more fabulous answers to hear from you, the experts. It's just been amazing, and the video of this will go on to help lots of people. And one thing I want to leave you all with is silver linings. I am convinced of this. As much as we wish we weren't the ones with the balance conditions, the adversity you are dealing with does make you a better person. You will be stronger for it. We don't choose it, but you coming through this is in a way a gift that makes you a better person. I know from myself, it's helped me in so many ways to deal with lots of other things in life by having to recognize that adversity does happen. It's not through anybody's choice. It's just how it is, but you do get stronger from it. And look, I get to meet wonderful people like you. That's part of the joy of, you know, the silver lining of my condition. So thanks everyone. I hope you've all got something from it today, and rest assured hundreds if not thousands will gain from this as well. And we will see you again. Next meeting is in April, and all those that want to be on member to member, email me now. Just let me know, because that list's coming out next week and you can get busy talking to everyone, and just carry on with the A/B testing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that at the next meeting of what good things have happened. But thanks everyone. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you all in a couple of months.
Thanks, guys.
Very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye-bye.